Welcome back to our explainer series on the Frontier Gandhi. Today, we're diving straight into Chapter 3 of his incredible life and struggle, career versus patriotism.
Okay, I want you to imagine, just for a second, that you're holding a literal golden ticket. A ticket that guarantees you power, a massive salary, deep societal respect, basically a life of absolute prestige. Now imagine willingly throwing that ticket away to embrace a life of hardship and struggle. Crazy, right? Why would anyone do that? Well, to really understand the Frontier Gandhi, we've got to look at the exact moment he held that very golden ticket in his own hands.
Whenever we think of the older Bacha Khan, we usually picture this gentle, peaceful leader with folded hands, a true champion of nonviolence. But what a lot of people actually don't know is that in his youth, this peaceful icon was dangerously close to becoming a sword-wielding colonial enforcer for the British military. So how did that almost happen? Well, we have to look back at his school days. While he was studying at the mission school in Peshawar, young Bacha Khan lived with his servant, a guy named Barani Kaka, and Barani Kaka absolutely loved the army. He would constantly fill this young boy's head with these thrilling, highly romanticized tales of military glory. Painting vivid pictures of handsome young officers in splendid uniforms, proudly marching at the head of their companies, flashing their swords in the sun. For a young kid, these stories were just incredibly alluring. It sparked this fierce desire in his heart to join the ranks. And trust me, the army would have been just as eager to have him. Bacha Khan grew to be an imposing 6 feet 3 inches tall. He was a striking, handsome young guy with a really commanding physical presence. In the eyes of British military recruiters, he was the absolute ideal candidate. He looked exactly like the kind of leader you'd want marching at the very front of a column.
But he didn't just sit around and dream about it. He took massive action. Driven by all those childhood stories, Bacha Khan bypassed standard procedures and sent an application for a direct commission straight to the Commander-in-Chief of India. He didn't even tell his parents. And man, things moved shockingly fast. Right around the time he was being promoted from the 9th to the 10th class and sitting for his exams, the reply arrived. Boom, he was granted a direct commission and told to report to the recruiting office the very next morning.
Now, the reality of this achievement really cannot be overstated. He was selected for a highly acclaimed regiment called the Guides, over in Merdan. This was an incredibly elite, prestigious placement. Getting in was notoriously difficult. Even the wealthiest, most influential families practically begged to get their sons enlisted, and they still failed. But Bacha Khan walked right in. Naturally, his father wasn't just okay with this, he was absolutely thrilled by his son's tremendous good fortune. But as is often the case with destiny, a single moment can change everything. Picture this in your mind. Bacha Khan is visiting a friend on a street in Peshawar, and this friend is already living the dream. He's serving as a cavalry officer in this exact elite regiment. They're just standing together chatting. The young officer is bareheaded, sporting a super fashionable haircut for the time, with a thick mop of hair on his forehead. It's just a casual, everyday moment between two friends. Then, out of nowhere, an English lieutenant happens to walk by them on the street. He takes one look at the young Pathan officer's fashionable, bareheaded haircut, becomes absolutely furious, and shouts, "Really? You damn bastard! So you want to be an Englishman, you?" In that one jarring insult, the entire romanticized illusion of the military was just completely shattered. Bacha Khan just stood there and watched his friend's face flush with deep humiliation. And he realized right then and there that proximity to power doesn't actually make you equal. The sickening reality hit him. No matter how elite the regiment, no matter how crisp the uniform, the British would never, ever view a Pathan as an equal. They would always be seen as inferior subjects, treated like dogs. So, this brings us to his first major crossroads. Bacha Khan had to ask himself a really profound question. Was this actually the life he wanted? It's a choice we all face in different ways, right? Do we accept a comfortable system that fundamentally conflicts with our core values? Bacha Khan's answer was a resolute no. He decided right in that moment that he would absolutely not join the British Army. He essentially abandoned the uniform before he even put it on, choosing instead the far more difficult path of living and serving as a free man. But get this, almost immediately after, a second golden ticket appeared. His brother, Dr. Khan Sahib, who was studying over in England, offered a really luxurious way out. He suggested Bacha Khan come to England to study engineering.
He even had a boat passage pre-booked for him, and his father, being supportive once again, handed him a massive sum for the time, 3,000 rupees. The bags were practically packed. The perfect escape from colonial oppression to a comfortable life abroad was laid out right in front of him. But before leaving, custom dictated that he needed to seek his mother's blessing. And this brings us to a deeply emotional crossroads. He approached his mother, whom he loved dearly, and asked simply, "May I go, Ma?" He really wanted to study. He genuinely believed getting this foreign education would eventually help him serve his people better. But his mother began to weep. She flatly refused to let him go. You see, in her eyes, and in the eyes of many locals at the time, Vilayat, or England, was this mysterious, distant land from which people just never seemed to return. She had already sent one son away across the ocean. Bacha Khan was her only other son. The grief and terror of losing him too was simply too much for her to bear. And this right here is where we see the true measure of the man. His profound love for his mother completely grounded him. He could not and would not leave his homeland and break his mother's heart just to pursue his own education and comfort. So the military was rejected, the foreign education was abandoned. He was staying right there in the frontier province. In the end, sometimes the path to our true life's work is paved entirely by the dreams we are forced to leave behind. So his new destiny crystallized into 3 distinct goals. Bacha Khan looked around his homeland and realized a pretty painful truth. His people were definitely victims of British oppression, yes, but they were also victims of their own internal feuds, divisions, and severe lack of education. He decided he would educate the ignorant. He would unite the divided, and most importantly, he would free his people, not with the flashing swords he dreamed of as a boy, but through nonviolence, service, and love. And this is the genesis of the famous Khudai Khidmagar movement, the servants of God. He took all that commanding presence, that towering 6'3" stature that was seemingly meant for a British cavalry charge, and he redirected every single ounce of it toward awakening the masses. He chose his people over his career. He chose his homeland over foreign luxury. He chose humanity over empire. But, making a noble choice is really only the beginning of the story. The reality of colonial rule was incredibly dark, and the British did not look kindly upon anyone trying to educate and unite the Pathans, which leaves us with a critical, actually pretty chilling question to ponder. How on earth could a newly minted, entirely peaceful movement possibly survive the Frontier Crimes Regulation, a set of brutal, crushing black laws specifically designed to completely break the Pathan spirit? Well, that is the incredible challenge we're going to uncover in our next explainer. You absolutely won't want to miss it.